The research vessel Dawn Horizon floated in the darkness of space like a small metal island. Inside, Hana sat at her desk and stared at the data screen in front of her. Numbers and charts filled the display, but they all told the same sad story. The Vrath species was failing to integrate into galactic society. Every attempt had ended badly. Every program had been shut down. Hana rubbed her tired eyes. She had been reading reports for 6 hours straight. As a xenobiologist, it was her job to understand alien species and help them adapt to life among the stars. But the Vrath case was different from anything she had seen before. The problem was not complicated biology or strange customs. The problem was fear. The Vrath were predators. They had sharp teeth, strong claws, and bodies built for hunting. They had evolved at the top of their world's food chain, just like some species on Earth. But almost every other species in the Galactic Council had evolved as prey animals. They had spent millions of years running from predators, hiding from them, fearing them in their very bones. That fear did not go away just because everyone now lived in space stations and talked in council chambers. Hana's communication device buzzed. It was a message from Bora, the human ambassador. Emergency council session in 1 hour. The Vrath situation has reached a critical point. Your presence is requested. Hana stood up and stretched. She was a small woman with calm eyes and gentle hands. Before joining the space program, she had been a veterinarian on Earth. She had worked with wolves, bears, big cats, and every kind of predator that humans shared their planet with. She understood something that most galactic species did not seem to grasp. Predators were not evil. They were not monsters. They were just animals trying to survive, trying to raise their young, trying to live. She walked through the ship's corridors toward the shuttle bay. Other crew members nodded to her as she passed. Day, the security officer, fell into step beside her. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a scar across his left cheek from an accident years ago. Going to the council station? Day asked. Emergency session about the Vrath, Hana replied. Day's expression darkened. I heard they want to separate the cubs from their families. Put them in isolation facilities. Hana's jaw tightened. Over my dead body. The shuttle ride to Council Station Varath 9 took 20 minutes. The station was enormous, a spinning wheel of metal and light that housed thousands of beings from hundreds of different worlds. Hana and Day made their way through crowded corridors filled with aliens of every shape and size. There were the Quillos with their long ears and nervous movements, the Thexians with their multiple eyes, the Harmons with their beautiful feathered crests, all prey species, all evolved to fear the hunt. The council chamber was a circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers. At the center was an open floor where speakers could address the assembly. Hana and Day took their places in the human delegation section, next to Bora and Captain Tae-Yang. Ambassador Quillen, a tall Quillo with gray fur and enormous ears, stood at the center of the floor. His voice carried through the chamber with the help of translation technology that made every word understandable to every species present. We have tried everything, Quillen said, his ears flat against his head in a sign of distress. We have tried education programs. We have tried integration schools. We have tried mixed community housing. Nothing works. The Vrath cubs are too dangerous, too unpredictable, too wild. Hana's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. She wanted to stand up and shout, but Bora placed a gentle hand on her arm. Wait, the ambassador whispered. Listen first. The cubs cannot control their instincts, another council member added. This one was a Thexian, her multiple eyes blinking in different rhythms. They attack without warning. They frighten children of other species. Their own parents cannot manage them. We have no choice but to remove them from the general population for everyone's safety. What you are suggesting is kidnapping, a voice boomed from the Vrath section of the chamber. Kreth stood there, a massive female Vrath with dark scales and golden eyes. Her voice was deep and filled with barely controlled rage. You want to take our children and lock them away because you are afraid of them. We are trying to help, Quillen protested, but his ears were still flat, his body language screaming fear even as he spoke. You are trying to make yourselves feel safe. Kreth shot back. My cubs are not monsters. They are children. They play, they learn, they laugh, but none of you will give them a chance. You see only teeth and claws. Hana stood up. Bora tried to stop her, but Hana gently pulled her arm away and stepped toward the speaking floor. Every eye in the chamber turned to look at her. Humans were still new to the Galactic Council, still proving themselves, still careful not to cause trouble. If I may speak, Hana said clearly. Quillen's ears twitched. The human xenobiologist. Very well. What is your perspective? Hana walked to the center of the floor. She was tiny compared to most of the beings in the room. But she stood straight and spoke with confidence. I have been studying the Vrath integration reports. I have read every assessment, every incident report, every failed program summary, and I have noticed something important. Every single attempt to help the Vrath cubs has been designed by prey species who are terrified of predators. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some voices sounded angry, others curious. That is a harsh accusation, a Harmon Council member said, his crest feathers rising in agitation. It is an observation, Hana replied calmly. And it is true. Every program treats the cubs like dangerous animals that need to be controlled. None of them treat the cubs like children who need to be taught. There is a difference. What would you suggest? Quillen asked. His tone was skeptical but not dismissive. Let me observe them, Hana said. Let me spend time with the cubs in a natural environment. No cages, no restraints, no barriers. Just observation and interaction. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Several council members stood up, objecting loudly. Day was already moving toward the floor, ready to support Hana if needed. Captain Taeyang looked both proud and worried. You would be killed, Quillen said flatly. The cubs are not fully grown, but they are still dangerous. They have injured trained handlers before. Injured handlers who approached them with fear and treated them like threats, Hana countered. I have worked with predators my entire life. Earth has many predator species. We learned how to understand them, how to work with them, how to live alongside them. We did not do it by locking them away. We did it by studying them, respecting them, and teaching them boundaries. Kreth was staring at Hana with an intensity that made several nearby council members lean away. You truly believe you can help my children? The Vrath asked. Hana turned to face Kreth directly. She did not flinch from the golden eyes or the sharp teeth. I believe your children are not broken. I believe they are untaught. There is a difference. And yes, I believe I can help. Kreth's expression was hard to read for most species, but Hana saw something there. Hope, desperate and painful. Then I give you permission to try. My cubs are on the lower levels of this station. We are kept separate from the other residents. Come whenever you are ready. The council chamber dissolved into arguments and debates. Some members supported the attempt, curious to see what the humans might accomplish. Others were horrified, certain that Hana was walking toward her death. Quillen finally called for order and announced that the human would be allowed to proceed, but under strict observation and with emergency protocols in place. As the session ended and beings began filing out of the chamber, Day caught up with Hana in the corridor. That was either very brave or very stupid, he said. Maybe both, Hana admitted with a small smile. Will you come with me? Of course, Dee said without hesitation. Someone needs to watch your back. Even if I think you are crazy. Bora and Captain Taeyang joined them. The captain was a weathered man with sharp eyes and gray hair. He had commanded ships for 30 years and had seen more of the galaxy than most. I am approving this mission, he said. But Hana, please be careful. We are still new here. If this goes wrong, it will not just affect you. It will affect how every species sees humanity. I understand, Captain, Hana said, but I have to try. Those cubs deserve a chance. Their parents deserve a chance. And maybe we can show the galaxy that fear is not the only way to handle differences. That night, Hana could not sleep. She lay in her quarters aboard the dawn horizon and thought about the cubs she would meet tomorrow. She had seen images of young Vrath in the reports. They looked like small dragons with scales and tails and bright, intelligent eyes. The reports called them dangerous, unpredictable, feral. But Hana had learned long ago not to trust reports written by people who were afraid. She thought about the wolf cubs she had raised at the rehabilitation center on Earth. Everyone said wolves were dangerous, that they could never be trusted, that they would always be wild. But Hana had learned that wolves were social animals with complex feelings and strong family bonds. They could be gentle, playful, and loving. They just needed to be understood on their own terms, not through the lens of human fear. Maybe the Vrath cubs were the same. Maybe they just needed someone who was not afraid to see them clearly. As Hana finally drifted off to sleep, she made a promise to herself. The lower levels of Council Station Verath 9 were different from the bright, clean corridors above. The lighting was dimmer here, the walls older, the air heavier. Hana walked beside Day through passages that most station residents never visited. This was where the Vrath lived, separated from the rest of galactic society like a disease that needed to be quarantined. They passed Vrath adults going about their daily business. The adults moved carefully, keeping their claws retracted, their heads slightly lowered. They were trying to appear small and non-threatening, even though their bodies were built for power. Hana noticed how other species hurried past them, eyes averted, bodies tense. The fear was thick enough to taste. A young Vrath male nodded respectfully to Hana as she passed. His scales were a deep blue color that reminded her of Earth's oceans. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly in perfect galactic common. "No one else has tried to help us in a long time." Hana stopped and met his eyes. "What is your name?" The Vrath seemed surprised by the question. "I am called Resh. I am Hana, and I promise I will do everything I can to help." Refresh's expression softened. It was subtle, but Hana saw it. Hope was a fragile thing here in the lower levels. Kreth was waiting for them outside a reinforced door. The massive Vrath female was even more impressive up close. Her golden eyes studied Hana with an intensity that would have terrified most beings. Day's hand had moved unconsciously to his weapon, but he did not draw it. He trusted Hana's judgment, even when his instincts screamed danger. "The council observers are already inside," Kreth said. Her voice was rough, like rocks grinding together. "They are watching through cameras. They expect you to fail. They expect my cubs to attack you." "I know," Hana said simply. "You should know something else," Kreth continued. "My cubs have never had a gentle touch from anyone outside our family. The handlers who tried to train them used shock sticks and nets and tranquilizer darts. They treated my children like dangerous animals. My cubs learned to fear everyone who is not Vrath. They learned that the galaxy sees them as monsters." Hana's heart ached. "How old are they?" "The youngest is 3 standard years. The oldest is 7. In human terms, they would be like your children between ages 4 and 10. "They are still babies," Hana whispered. "They are," Kreth agreed. "But they have teeth and claws, so the galaxy wants to lock them away forever." Hana placed a hand on the reinforced door. She could hear sounds from the other side. Scratching, movement, low chirping noises that might have been communication or play. "Tell me about them." "Not as a group." As individuals, Kreth blinked, and for a moment her fierce expression cracked. "No one has ever asked that before." "I am asking now." Kreth's voice became softer. "The smallest is named Pip. She is shy and gentle, but she has been labeled as aggressive because she panics when strangers approach too quickly. The oldest is Thorn. He tries to protect his younger siblings, so the handlers called him violent. Then there is Shimmer, who loves to play but plays too rough because no one taught her how to be gentle. There is Sky, who asks too many questions and gets frustrated when no one answers. There is—" "I understand," Hana interrupted gently. "They are children with personalities and feelings. They are not a problem to be solved. They are people who need guidance." Kreth's eyes glistened. Hana was not sure if Vrath could cry, but she recognized emotion when she saw it. "Will you really try to see them that way?" Kreth asked. "I already do," Hana replied. The door opened. Day moved to follow Hana inside, but she shook her head. "Wait here. Too many people at once will overwhelm them." "Hana, this is not safe," Day protested. "Nothing worth doing is completely safe," Hana said with a small smile. Then she stepped through the door alone. The room beyond was large but sterile. White walls, harsh lighting, and a smooth metal floor. This was not a place designed for children. This was a laboratory, a cage dressed up to look civilized. Around the edges of the room were 12 small Vrath, each one a different size and color. They had been separated into individual containment areas before Hana arrived, but now those barriers had been removed per her request. The cubs noticed her immediately. Their heads snapped toward her in unison, nostrils flaring as they caught her scent. 12 pairs of eyes locked onto her. Some were gold like Kreth's, others were green or silver or amber. They were beautiful. In a hidden observation room, council members watched through cameras. Hana could hear Quillen's voice through hidden speakers, narrating for the observers. "The human has entered. The cubs have detected her. Predator instincts will trigger in 3, 2. But the cubs did not attack. They moved forward slowly, cautiously, their bodies low to the ground." Hana recognized the posture immediately. It was not hunting behavior. It was curiosity mixed with uncertainty. These cubs had learned that new people meant pain and fear, but they were also young enough to still hope for something different. Hana slowly sat down on the floor. She made herself small, non-threatening. She kept her hands visible and her movements gentle. The cubs stopped, confused by this behavior. Adults always stayed standing. Adults always kept their distance. Adults always held weapons. "Hello," Hana said softly. "My name is Hana. I came here to meet you. Not to hurt you. Not to trap you. Just to meet you." The cubs looked at each other. Hana could see them communicating somehow. Maybe through sounds too high for her to hear or through body language she had not yet learned to read. The smallest one, Pip, if Hana guessed correctly, took a tiny step forward. The others tensed, ready to pull her back if danger appeared. Pip moved closer, her small body trembling. She was barely larger than a medium-sized dog from Earth. Her scales were a pale silver color that caught the harsh light beautifully. She approached within arm's reach and stopped, her head tilted to one side, studying Hana with enormous golden eyes. "You are scared," Hana observed gently. "That is okay. I am a little scared too. New things are scary sometimes." Pip made a small chirping sound. Then very carefully she stretched her neck forward and sniffed Hana's hand. Her nostrils flared as she took in the scent. Predators trusted their noses above almost everything else. Hana had learned that with Earth animals. A scent told the truth when appearances might lie. Whatever Pip smelled, it seemed to reassure her. The small cub moved closer and pressed her snout against Hana's palm. Her scales were warm and surprisingly smooth. Hana did not grab or clutch. She just let her hand rest there, a gentle point of contact. "Good girl," Hana whispered. "You are very brave. That broke the dam." The other cubs moved forward, drawn by Pip's courage and Hana's calm presence. They surrounded her carefully, sniffing, investigating, testing this strange new being who sat on the floor and spoke softly and did not hold any weapons. In the observation room, Quillen had fallen silent. The other council members watched in shock as the uncontrollable cubs moved around the human with careful curiosity instead of violence. Hana let them explore. A cub with deep red scales, probably thorn, sniffed her hair and made a surprised snorting sound. Another with green and blue patterns investigated her boots. A small one with golden scales tried to climb into her lap and promptly got tangled in his own tail, falling over with an indignant squeak. His siblings chirped in what Hana could only describe as laughter. She smiled. These were children. They played, they explored, they got clumsy and made mistakes. They were not weapons or monsters. They were just young creatures trying to understand their world. One of the larger cubs, Shimmer, based on her sparkling blue-white scales, bounded forward too enthusiastically and crashed into Hana's shoulder. The impact was not hard enough to hurt, but it was rough. Shimmer immediately jumped back, her eyes wide with fear, waiting for punishment. Hana did not yell or strike or pull away. Instead, she gently caught Shimmer's attention and held up one hand. "Gentle," she said clearly. "Like this." She softly touched Shimmer's snout with one finger, barely making contact. "Gentle." Shimmer stared at the finger touching her nose. Then very carefully she reached out with one small clawed hand and touched Hana's arm. She was so careful that her claws did not even scratch the fabric. Her eyes looked up at Hana, seeking approval. "Yes," Hana said warmly. "Good girl, gentle, that is how we touch friends." The cubs were learning. Right there, right in that moment, they were learning. No shock sticks needed, no tranquilizer darts, no cages. Just patience, clear communication, and respect. Sky, a curious cub with bright green eyes, chirped a series of sounds at Hana. It was clearly a question, but Hana did not speak their language yet. She made an apologetic face. "I do not understand yet, but I am listening. Can you show me what you mean?" Sky considered this, then walked to the corner of the room where some basic toys had been left. He picked up a ball and brought it back, dropping it at Hana's feet. His meaning was clear. "Play? You want to play?" Hana said with delight. "Yes, we can play." She picked up the ball and rolled it gently across the floor. Sky pounced on it with all the grace of a young kitten, which is to say none at all. He tumbled over the ball and ended up on his back, all four legs in the air. The other cubs chirped their laughter again. For the next hour, Hana played with the cubs. She taught them gentle touch by demonstrating it over and over. She taught them patience by making them wait for their turns with the ball. 6 days had passed since Hana's first meeting with the cubs. 6 days of patient work, gentle teaching, and slow progress. The sterile white room had been transformed. Hana had convinced the council to allow changes. Now there were soft mats on the floor. climbing structures in the corners and toys scattered around. It looked less like a laboratory and more like a place where children could learn and grow. Hana arrived each morning at the same time. Routine was important for young minds. The cubs had learned to expect her, and they greeted her now with excited chirps and happy bouncing instead of fearful uncertainty. Pip always ran to her first, climbing up Hana's legs to perch on her shoulder like a scaly parrot. The little cub had claimed that spot as her special place. Today's lessons had been going well. Hana was teaching the cubs how to play hunting games without actually hurting each other. On their homeworld, young Vrath would have learned this from their parents and older siblings, but here on the station they had been isolated too young. They had missed crucial learning time. Now Hana was trying to fill that gap. "Thorn, remember to pull your claws in when you tag someone," Hana called out as the largest cub chased Shimmer around the room. "Shimmer, if it hurts, you need to tell him. Use your voice." Shimmer yipped when Thorn caught her, and Thorn immediately let go, looking worried. Hana nodded her approval. "Good. Both of you did well. That is how you play safely." Sky was in the corner with 3 other cubs trying to build a tower out of blocks. It kept falling down, and the cubs were getting frustrated. Hana sat down beside them. "What are you trying to do?" Sky chirped and pointed at the blocks, then made a gesture upward with his clawed hand. "You want to make it tall? Let me show you a trick." Hana demonstrated how to make a wider base so the tower would not fall. The cubs watched intently, then immediately tried to copy her technique. When their tower stood 10 blocks high without falling, they all chirped in triumph. These small victories filled Hana with joy. Every lesson learned, every gentle interaction, every moment of play proved what she had known from the start. These cubs could learn. They could control themselves. They could be taught boundaries and rules. They just needed someone patient enough to teach them. But today's session had been particularly long. Hana had been working with the cubs for nearly 8 hours, putting them through various exercises and games designed to help them practice self-control and social skills. The cubs had given their full effort, trying hard to please this strange, soft creature who was so kind to them. As the station's artificial evening began, the lighting in the room slowly dimmed to match the natural cycle. The cubs were slowing down. Their movements became less energetic, their play less enthusiastic. Young bodies needed rest, and these young bodies had worked hard today. Hana sat down on one of the soft mats, her back against the wall. She was tired too. Teaching was rewarding work, but it was also exhausting. Pip, who had been practicing gentle touches with the smaller cubs, immediately noticed Hana sitting and scampered over. The little silver cub climbed into Hana's lap without hesitation and curled up there, her warm body a comfortable weight. Thorn, ever the protector, positioned himself beside Hana's left side. He was too big now to fit in her lap, but he pressed his scaled shoulder against hers. Sky approached from the right and settled against her other side, his head resting on her knee. One by one, the other cubs noticed what was happening and moved closer. In the observation room, the council members who had been watching all day grew quiet. They had seen the progress over the past 6 days. They had watched the cubs learn and grow under Hana's guidance. But what was happening now was different. This was not a lesson or a game. This was something deeper. Shimmer draped herself across Hana's feet, her sparkling scales catching the dimmed light. 2 other cubs curled up against her legs. Another rested his head on Thorn's back, creating a chain of contact that led back to Hana. The cubs naturally formed a pile, seeking warmth and security from each other and from the human who had shown them such kindness. Hana looked down at the cubs surrounding her, 12 small predators, each one capable of inflicting serious harm if they chose. 12 children who had been labeled as dangerous, uncontrollable, and feral, and here they were, peaceful and trusting, seeking comfort before sleep like any child might. The room was quiet now except for the soft sounds of breathing. Hana felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, along with Pip's small body. These cubs trusted her completely. They had given her everything they had to give. Their attention, their effort, their hearts. In return, she had given them patience, guidance, and care. It seemed like a fair trade. One of the cubs yawned, showing rows of sharp little teeth. Another made a sleepy chirping sound. They were exhausted, but they were also slightly restless. Sleep did not come easily in this sterile room, under harsh lights, watched by cameras. Cubs needed security to sleep deeply. They needed to feel safe. Hana understood this instinctively. She had seen it with wolf pups and lion cubs and every young predator she had ever worked with. They needed to know they were protected, that nothing would harm them in their vulnerable sleeping state. Usually that protection came from parents, but these cubs had been separated from their parents' guidance for too long. They needed someone to fill that role, even temporarily. Hana began to hum softly. It was an old lullaby from Earth, a simple melody that her own mother had sung to her when she was small. The cubs did not understand the words, had never heard the tune before, but the gentle sound of her voice seemed to soothe them. Their bodies relaxed further, pressing closer to her warmth. She reached out and gently stroked Pip's scales. The little cub made a sound like a purr, a vibration that rumbled through her small body. Hana let her hand trail to Thorn's shoulder, then to Sky's head, offering each cub a moment of gentle attention. Her touch was soft, reassuring, the kind of touch that said without words, "You are safe, you are valued, you are cared for." The cubs were falling asleep now. Their breathing slowed and deepened. The small fidgeting movements stilled. One by one, they surrendered to exhaustion and trust, letting themselves drift into sleep while surrounded by the pack they were forming. Hana whispered, so quietly that only the cubs closest to her might hear, "Sleep now. You are safe. Tomorrow we will learn more. Tomorrow we will play more. But right now, just sleep," and they did. 12 cubs wrapped around the human like she was their son, and they were planets held in her gentle gravity. Their bodies formed layers around her, over her feet, against her legs, pressed to her sides. She was trapped completely, unable to move without disturbing them. But she did not want to move. This moment was sacred. In the observation room, Ambassador Quillen stared at the screen in silence. His long ears were forward, his body tense with the effort of processing what he was seeing. Beside him, researcher Thex was taking notes with shaking hands. The other council members who had stayed to watch were equally stunned. "This should not be possible," Quillen finally whispered. "Predators do not do this." "They do," Thex replied, his voice filled with wonder. "We just never gave them the chance to show us." On the screen, Hana sat perfectly still, her eyes half closed, her breathing slow and calm. She was falling asleep too, lulled by the warmth of the cubs and the exhaustion of a long day. Pip was curled in her lap, completely vulnerable, completely trusting. Thorn's larger body provided a backrest, his own head drooping as sleep claimed him. Sky had wrapped his tail around Hana's wrist like a child holding a parent's hand. The image was powerful in its simplicity. Human and alien, predator and prey species. All boundaries dissolved in the universal language of care and trust. This was not science or strategy. This was connection at its most basic and most profound. Day stood outside the room with Kreth, watching through the reinforced window. The security officer's eyes were wet. He had spent 6 days watching Hana work with the cubs, had seen the progress, but this moment hit differently. This was not just teaching or training. This was love, pure and simple. The cubs loved Hana, and she loved them back. Kreth was openly crying now, tears running down her scaled face and dripping onto the floor. "No one has ever been this gentle with them," she said, her voice breaking. "No one has ever made them feel safe enough to sleep like this." "Hana has a gift," Day replied quietly. "She sees the truth in things, not what people say they are, but what they really are." "What do my children look like to you?" Kreth asked suddenly, turning to face the human. "When you see them, what do you feel?" Day considered the question carefully. He looked through the window at the pile of sleeping cubs wrapped around his friend. "I see children," he said finally. "I see young ones who needed someone to care about them. And I see that they found that person." Kreth closed her golden eyes. "Thank you. You cannot know how much it means to hear that." Back in the observation room, the council members were beginning to leave. Some looked thoughtful, others disturbed by what they had witnessed. Their worldview had been challenged today, and that was never comfortable. But none of them could deny what they had seen. The cubs were not the uncontrollable monsters the reports claimed. They were children who responded to care and guidance. The image had spread too far, too fast. In the 3 days since someone leaked the photo of Hana sleeping with the cubs, the Galactic network had erupted into chaos. News feeds showed the picture constantly, always with different commentary. Some called it beautiful. Others called it dangerous propaganda. No one could ignore it. Hana tried to ignore the noise and focus on her work. The cubs needed her, and they did not care about galactic politics. But the politics were coming for her whether she wanted them to or not. On the fourth morning after the photo's release, Bora arrived at the Cubs' room looking worried. Hana was in the middle of teaching the Cubs how to share food peacefully, an important skill for social creatures. Pip and Sky were doing well, waiting their turns patiently. Shimmer was struggling, her instincts telling her to grab and protect her portion, but she was trying and that was what mattered. "Hana, we need to talk," Bora said quietly. Hana looked up from where she sat surrounded by Cubs. "Can it wait?" "We are in the middle of a lesson." "I am afraid not. The council has called an emergency session. They want to discuss your work here. Specifically, Ambassador Quillen has formally challenged the program." Hana's stomach dropped. She had known this was coming, but she had hoped for more time. "What kind of challenge?" "He wants to prove that your methods are dangerous, that you have simply been lucky so far. He is demanding a public demonstration." "What kind of demonstration?" Day asked, moving closer. He had been standing guard by the door as usual. Bora hesitated. "He wants you to interact with an adult Vrath in what he calls a natural setting. Without barriers, without protection. He says if predator instincts can truly be controlled through your methods, then adult Vrath should be just as safe as the Cubs." Hana felt Thorn press against her leg. The Cub sensed her distress even if he did not understand the words. "That is not a fair test," Hana said carefully. "The Cubs have been learning and practicing self-control. An adult Vrath has not been through that training." "Quillen knows that," Bora replied. "That is the point. He wants you to fail. If you refuse, he will claim that you know the Cubs are dangerous and that you have been manipulating everyone with careful staging. If you accept and something goes wrong, he will use it as proof that predators cannot be trusted. Either way, he wins." "Unless I succeed," Hana said quietly. "Hana, no," Day said firmly. "This is a trap. You do not have to do this." "If I do not, what happens to the Cubs?" Hana asked, looking around at the 12 young Vrath who were watching her with worried eyes. They might not understand all the words, but they understood tone and emotion. They knew something bad was happening. Bora's expression was grim. "Quillen has support from the conservative faction. If you refuse or fail, they will push to have the Cubs removed from their families and placed in permanent isolation. They will use this as proof that predators cannot integrate no matter what methods are used." Hana closed her eyes. Of course, the stakes were never just about her. They were about these children and all the Vrath children who would come after them. About whether the galaxy would choose understanding or fear. Who would the adult Vrath be? Hana asked. "Kreth has volunteered," Bora said softly. Hana's eyes snapped open. "Kreth? She is the Cubs' mother. She would never hurt me. Quillen knows that. But he is betting that you do not know how to read adult Vrath body language as well as you read the Cubs. He is betting that he can trigger a defensive response that will look like aggression to the observers. The test will be designed to stress both of you." "Then I need to talk to Kreth before the test," Hana said, standing up. The Cubs immediately clustered around her legs, chirping their concern. "I need to understand how adult Vrath communicate. I need to know what to watch for." "The test is scheduled for tomorrow," Bora said. Quillen pushed for immediate action. Captain Taeyang tried to delay it, but the council overruled him. "Then I have today to prepare." Hana looked down at the Cubs and knelt to their level. "Listen to me, all of you. I have to go do something difficult tomorrow. It is to help you and your families. I need you to be brave and trust me, okay?" Pip climbed into her lap and pressed her small snout against Hana's cheek. The gesture was so tender, so trusting, that Hana felt tears sting her eyes. Sky made a questioning chirp, his green eyes worried. Thorn positioned himself protectively as if he could guard Hana from distant threats he did not understand. "I will come back," Hana promised, even though she was not entirely sure it was a promise she could keep. "I will always come back to you if I can." The rest of that day was spent in preparation. Kreth came to the Cubs' room and spent hours teaching Hana the subtle body language of adult Vrath, how the position of the tail indicated mood, how the angle of the head showed respect or challenge, how the pattern of breathing changed with different emotions. "The most important thing," Kreth said, her golden eyes serious, "is to never show fear, not because I would attack if you did, but because Quillen will be watching for it. He will use any sign of fear to claim that you do not truly trust me, that your methods are built on lies." "I am not afraid of you," Hana said honestly. I am afraid of what happens to your children if this goes wrong. Kreth's expression softened. That is exactly why it will not go wrong. We both have too much to lose. We both love those cubs too much to fail them. That evening, Hana spent extra time with the cubs. They could sense something was wrong, their play more subdued than usual. Pip refused to leave Hana's lap. Thorn paced near the door like a sentry. Sky kept bringing Hana toys, trying to distract her from her worry. When night fell and the cubs began to tire, Hana settled into their familiar sleeping position. The cubs arranged themselves around her like always, seeking her warmth and security. She hummed the same lullaby she had hummed before, stroked their scales with gentle hands, and whispered the same words. Sleep now. You are safe. Tomorrow will come, but tonight just sleep. But this time Hana could not sleep with them. She sat awake through the night cycle, feeling the weight of 12 small bodies trusting her completely. Knowing that tomorrow she would have to prove that trust was not misplaced, the responsibility felt crushing. Day came to sit with her in the dark room. You do not have to do this, he said quietly. We could leave, take the dawn horizon and go. The captain would support the decision. And abandon these cubs? Leave them to be taken away from their families? No. Hana's voice was firm despite her fear. I started this. I showed the galaxy that these cubs could learn and grow. Now I have to finish it. I have to show them that the adults are not monsters either. You are braver than anyone I have ever met, Day said. I am terrified, Hana admitted, but being brave does not mean not being scared. It means doing what is right even when you are scared. The night cycle ended. The cubs woke slowly, stretching and yawning. They went through their morning routine, eating breakfast and starting their play, but they stayed closer to Hana than usual. They knew. Somehow they knew this was an important day. When the time came for Hana to leave, the cubs did not want to let her go. Pip clung to her leg. Thorn blocked the door. Sky made distressed chirping sounds. It broke Hana's heart. I will come back, she told them again, kneeling to embrace as many as she could reach. Be good, practice your lessons. And remember that you are not monsters. You are children, and you are loved. Kreth was waiting in the corridor. The adult Vrath looked calm, but Hana could see tension in the set of her shoulders. Are you ready? Kreth asked. No, Hana answered honestly. But we are doing it anyway. They walked together through the station toward the council chamber. Word had spread about the test. Crowds of various species lined the corridors, watching them pass. Some faces showed support. Others showed disgust. Many showed simple curiosity about what would happen when a human faced a full-grown predator alone. The test chamber was a large circular room with observation windows all around. The council members sat in protected booths above, watching down at the floor where Hana and Kreth would face each other. There were no barriers, no weapons, no safety measures. Just open space and two beings who would have to trust each other completely. Ambassador Quillen's voice echoed through the chamber. The human claims that predators can be taught to control their instincts, that they can be integrated safely into galactic society. Today we will test that claim. If the human is correct, she will be safe. If she is wrong, we will finally have proof that predators are too dangerous to allow freedom. Hana looked up at the observation windows. She saw Captain Tae Yang, his face grim. She saw Bora, her hands clasped tightly. She saw Day, his expression fierce and protective. She saw researcher Thex, his multiple eyes all focused intently. And she saw the cubs. Someone had brought them to watch. All 12 small faces pressed against a window, golden and green and amber eyes locked on her. That decided it. She could not fail. Not with the cubs watching. Not when their future depended on what happened here. I am ready, Hana said clearly. Let us begin. Hana entered the test chamber from one side. Kreth entered from the opposite end. The massive Vrath looked even larger in the open space, her dark scales gleaming under the harsh lights. To most observers, she appeared dangerous, powerful, built to kill. But Hana had learned to see past the surface. She saw a mother trying to protect her children. She saw someone as nervous as Hana herself. The doors sealed behind them with a heavy sound. They were locked in now, committed. Quillen's voice came through speakers around the room. The human and the Vrath will interact naturally. No coaching, no predetermined actions. We will observe how a predator species behaves when alone with a vulnerable prey species. That wording was deliberate, Hana knew. Calling her vulnerable prey, calling Kreth a predator, reinforcing the idea that violence was inevitable. She pushed the anger aside. Anger would not help here. Only calm and understanding would. Kreth began walking toward her. The adult Vrath's movement was controlled, but her tail was slightly raised, her head high. To prey species watching, it probably looked threatening, but Hana had learned. That posture showed respect, showed that Kreth was approaching as an equal, not a threat. Hana walked forward to meet her halfway. She kept her movement steady and calm. No sudden gestures that might startle. No signs of fear or submission. Just one person meeting another person. They stopped a few feet apart. Golden eyes met human eyes. The chamber was silent except for the sound of their breathing. "How are you feeling?" Hana asked quietly in Galactic Common. "Nervous," Kreth replied, her deep voice steady. "If I make one wrong move, if you flinch at the wrong moment, they will use it against us." "Then we do not make wrong moves," Hana said simply. "We just talk. Like two people who respect each other." They began to converse. Hana asked about the cub's progress. Kreth described how much they had grown in confidence. They discussed which cubs were learning fastest, which ones needed more patience. It was a normal conversation, the kind parents might have about children they both cared for. In the observation booths, the council members watched with varying expressions. Some seemed confused. Others looked disappointed that nothing dramatic was happening. Quillen's long ears were flat against his head in frustration. The conversation continued for 10 minutes. 15, 20. Hana slowly moved closer to Kreth, close enough to touch if she reached out. Kreth remained relaxed, her body language open and friendly. There was no aggression, no tension, just two beings talking peacefully. Then Quillen made his move. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the chamber. The sound was piercing, designed to trigger panic responses in any species. Red lights began flashing. The noise was deliberately chosen to mimic a predator alert, the kind of warning that had protected prey species for millions of years. Kreth reacted instantly. Her body tensed, her head snapped around searching for the threat. Her claws extended reflexively. In a flash of movement, she spun toward Hana. The observers gasped. This was it. This was the moment Quillen had been waiting for. The moment when instinct would overcome control and the predator would attack. But that was not what happened. Kreth's spin positioned her between Hana and the source of the alarm. Her body became a shield. Her claws were out, but they were facing away from Hana, toward the perceived danger. She had not moved to attack the human. She had moved to protect her. Hana understood immediately. She stayed calm, placing a gentle hand on Kreth's scaled shoulder. "It is okay," she said clearly, her voice cutting through the noise. "There is no danger. It is just a sound. You are safe. I am safe." Kreth's breathing was fast, adrenaline pumping through her system. But she heard Hana's voice. She felt the gentle touch. Slowly, her body began to relax. Her claws retracted. She looked down at Hana, golden eyes wide with the realization of what had just happened. "They tried to make me hurt you," Kreth said, her voice shaking with anger. "They tried," Hana agreed. "But you did not. Even when every instinct in your body was screaming danger, you did not hurt me. You protected me. That is what matters." The alarm finally shut off. The silence that followed was profound. Hana turned to face the observation windows, her hand still resting on Kreth's shoulder in a gesture of trust and solidarity. "This is what you do not understand," Hana called out, her voice steady and clear. "You see teeth and claws and think monster. You trigger fear responses and call it proof of violence. But what just happened shows the truth. Kreth's instincts told her to protect, not to attack. Predators are not mindless killing machines. They are family-oriented, protective, loyal. They are dangerous to threats, yes, but they are not threats to those they care about." She gestured to Kreth, who stood tall beside her. "You tried to make her lose control. You wanted her to prove your prejudice right, but all you proved is that your understanding of predators is wrong. Fundamentally, completely wrong." Quillen's voice came through the speakers, strained and angry. The Vrath was aggressive. She extended her claws. She moved toward you in a threatening manner. She positioned herself to guard me, Hana countered. Her body was between me and what she perceived as danger. Her claws were facing away from me. Anyone who understands predator behavior can see the difference between an attack posture and a protective posture. The problem is that you do not understand. You have never tried to understand. You just fear. Movement in one of the observation windows caught Hana's attention. The cubs had been watching everything. Now they were pressing against the glass, chirping frantically. They wanted to get to Hana and Kreth to join the family unit that was being threatened. "Let them in," Hana said suddenly. "Absolutely not," Quillen responded immediately. "That would be even more dangerous." "Let them in," Hana repeated, her voice firm. "You wanted a demonstration? Let me show you what predators really are when they are with their family. Let me show you the truth you have been too afraid to see." There was a long pause. Consultation happening in the observation booths. Finally, Captain Taeyang's voice came through. "Do it. Open the cub's entrance." "This is highly irregular," Quillen protested. "This entire test has been irregular," Bora's voice cut in. "You wanted proof, Ambassador. Let the human provide it." A door on the side of the chamber opened. 12 small Vrath cubs burst through like a furry-scaled tidal wave. They raced across the floor, chirping and calling. But they did not run wild or lose control. They went straight to Hana and Kreth, circling around them, checking them both for injury. Pip climbed up Hana's leg to her usual spot on the human's shoulder. Thorn positioned himself protectively beside Kreth, mirroring his mother's defensive stance. Sky and Shimmer pressed against Hana's legs. The other cubs formed a circle around the group, creating a protective formation. "This," Hana said, gesturing to the cubs and Kreth around her, "is a predator family. They protect each other. They care for each other. They have strong bonds and deep emotions. They are not so different from any other species' families. The only difference is that you have been too afraid to see it." She knelt down and the cubs immediately clustered closer. Kreth lowered her head to nuzzle her children, making soft sounds of reassurance. The adult Vrath's claws were fully retracted now. Her body language completely peaceful despite the stress of the last few minutes. The cubs have learned to control their instincts because someone finally taught them with patience and respect instead of fear and punishment, Hana continued. Kreth showed control even when deliberately triggered because she is not a monster. She is a person, a mother, someone who loves her children and wants a better future for them. Hana looked up at the observation windows, making eye contact with as many council members as she could. You can keep treating predator species as dangerous outsiders. You can keep separating families, isolating cubs, teaching new generations to fear and hate, or you can try something different. You can try understanding. You can try teaching instead of punishing. You can try building bridges instead of walls. Pip chirped softly in her ear. Hana reached up to gently stroke the small cub's scales. These cubs were labeled as uncontrollable, dangerous, feral. But they learned. They grew, they changed, not because I forced them, but because someone finally gave them the chance. The question is whether you will give other Vrath cubs the same chance, whether you will allow families to stay together, whether you will choose understanding over fear. The chamber was silent. Even Quillen had no response. The image before them was undeniable. A human surrounded by predators, completely safe, completely trusted. An adult Vrath who had been deliberately stressed but had not lashed out. Cubs who were playful and gentle despite their natural weapons. Finally, researcher Thek spoke. His voice came through the speakers, all his eyes focused on the scene below. "I have studied the predator question for 20 years. I have read every paper, conducted countless experiments, interviewed hundreds of species. And in all that time, I never once considered that the problem might not be the predators themselves, but our approach to them." He paused, then continued. "The human is right. We have been asking the wrong questions. We have been looking at predators as a problem to be solved instead of as people to be understood. This demonstration has shown me that everything I thought I knew was based on flawed assumptions." Other voices began to join in.